be.
I'm gonna have to do a call in to my own YouTube channel. Hi, this is Jack Butler. I'm just calling in. Can I get on your channel? Hi, I got a question. So you can hear me now?
You look good, man. You look great.
Okay.
Yeah, you're back to like the present day, no longer 1980s 8-bit graphics.
Got it. Well, thanks everyone for your patience. I know that some people are kind of joining us, coming over to this one. Thanks for finding it. Where were we, Clayton?
We were talking about how to not let past relationships ruin your current one. Yeah.
Yes.
And by the way, I want to say something. I just want to name this because, look, I mean, we've got I'm going to be getting off here at the end of the hour, so you know, maybe you want to take over and keep answering some questions here. But I just want to also name that the Becoming the One program that we've developed is not just for people that are single. In fact, if you're in a relationship, it's going to I think fit in like an incredible puzzle piece, because you've got somebody in front of you to really be working with and really get a reflection on how you're changing. So I just say, if you want to transform your current relationship, if you want to make it more securely attached and change the geometry in a way that opens the communication, deepens intimacy, brings more just depth and honesty, the Becoming the One course is going to do that. And you know, I've seen it transform my own relationship, just even going through this material and bringing the concepts and principles that we talk about it into my own life, and it's incredibly powerful. Yeah.
That's really cool to hear, actually, because also it's it's one thing teaching stuff. It's also hard sometimes to fully embody and integrate it.
Yeah.
So let me just go see if I've got any questions coming in here. Yeah, we have. How do you get a child to accept your new partner? Any quick thoughts on that, shooting from the hip?
How do you get a partner to accept your child?
No, the other way around. How do you get the child to accept your new partner?
Wow, great. That's a great question. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know if you can force that.
Yeah.
I think the best way to that is that they come to that sort of on conclusions. I would be curious what their experience is, right? Because maybe there's something that they are fighting for. Maybe there's something that they're protecting. Maybe there's a way that they do or don't feel safe. My imagination over time is that the more that you accept their resistance and that you accept, your partner fully and what's happened, that maybe things ease up over time.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, what I hear you saying, which is, I think, genius, is that the acceptance, this idea of a kid accepting your current partner, it might be in some ways like like the veneer. The veneer is they don't accept, but really there might be something else going on where the kid feels like there's something being taken away from them. Maybe they feel like they're going to be playing second fiddle. They're scared of not being a priority. They're feeling like they're in competition with this new human that's entered the life. And so I think, the more that you can create a space where you can like really hear these concerns and not make it a priority that they must accept your other partner, that you're probably going to get to the truth of what might be going on. And then you can actually give your kid the reassurance that they're actually asking for, but might not know how.
Totally. Yeah. The one thing I'll throw in there, which is just a bit of a left field thought. There are things that happen in group dynamics where people get sort of stuck in a particular energy within the group or the system, right? So in this system, it might just be there's the three of you, or maybe, I don't know if there are other children, or maybe there's your previous partner. And sometimes people can play a role in the same way that you play a role in your family of origin, right? That you maybe are the smart one, or you're the difficult one, or you're the sporty one, or you're the silent one, or you're the partying one. People play roles in systems. And so sometimes you have to kind of move the system around in order to get something to shift. And the best way often to do that is to get fully into the perspective of the person that you're having a challenge with. So in this instance, how could you fully be in the perspective of a child who has to accept a new partner into their life, or is being asked to and maybe doesn't want to? One of the first things you might notice is the powerlessness, that the child has in this situation, because they don't get to choose this, right? You get to choose your partner. They don't get to choose that. And sometimes in fully embodying that perspective, like almost fully being in their part of it, their polarity, their hopelessness, their frustration, their fear, their powerlessness, sometimes that can also encourage something to shift. You know, because like you fully get them. You know, you start with full rapport with them. Maybe they don't have to accept. Maybe actually, unless they're getting significance from that, and you're sort of reinforcing the wrong thing. But there's normally deeper territory to be excavated, I guess, is what we're maybe pointing to. Yeah. So I know you have to go at the top of the hour, buddy. I'm wondering if there's anything that you want to. I was going to say that you want to love and leave us with. I just want to acknowledge this is a British expression. It doesn't mean I'm abandoning you. It's just kind of sometimes what we say, I'm going to love you and leave you. It's like a polite British way of saying someone has to leave. They're not abandoning you. So Clayton is not abandoning anyone here. He just has an appointment that he has to go to. And so is there anything that you want to say before that happens?
Nothing comes to mind, just to be completely right. Yeah, nothing comes to mind. I mean, if there's a question that you want to ask me to pull something out, I'm happy to answer that. But I feel like
okay. So you said that this work that we do together, Becoming the One curriculum, has had an impact on you and your own relationship. Is there anything that you would want to talk to that? Is there any one specific thing that you've noticed that you yourself have worked on, learned, transformed?
Yeah, I would say that just a big piece, the thing that comes to my mind right now as you ask that question is this component around what am I taking responsibility for? And really seeing that the dynamics and the elements that I find maybe intolerable that happen in the relationship when they happen there's a way that I'm contributing, there's a way that I'm consenting or allowing those things, maybe within myself or maybe within the way that I'm seeing the situation. And I feel like this work has given me a lot more power and freedom to be able to shift my own internal experience so that I can see my partner differently, so that I can see myself differently, and not get locked up in a dynamic that's not serving me. Now, granted, I mean, that's easier said than done. I think that, sometimes I can get stuck in something and I can feel there's a mismatch. I think this work has just given me more freedom to be able to say, wait a second, no, there is a solution to this. And maybe the solution is actually just to kind of sit in this and feel what this experience wants me to feel. So that would be another component, is to stop running away from the feelings that life is asking you to feel and start being with them. And through being with them, maybe I get the lesson, and maybe suddenly the situation just dissolves and transforms. Where in the past, a younger version of me would have been like, oh, I got to get out of this. I got to break up, or, I'm not supposed to feel this way right now. I'm not supposed to feel this way in relationship. It's like, actually, I am. So therefore I am supposed to right now.
I love that. How simple, but how profound, right? Versus all the commentary of, I'm not supposed to feel this shouldn't be happening. But to actually be like, this is happening and I am going to be with it.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for that. I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on, saying hi to folks. It's been good to be with you. I'll do it again. And I'm going to stay around and just take a few questions here. So, Clayton.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. All right. Bye.
Cheers. All righty. So maybe you can just let me in some screen to you guys. And if you have a few questions, I will see if I can get them answered. I know also there were a few of you that were with us on the previous stream that had questions that I haven't gotten to, so feel free to repost if that is the case. All right. Yes, blushing with internet woes. That's cute. Welcome. Hey, Mimi. Hey, Cloda. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Animuse. I appreciate it. Good work. I like that you're standing in your power there. My daughter's 22 and she has to prove if I am interested in. She's just too important to me. Great. Yeah, that's another perspective on it, right? That this has sort of got to work for everyone in order for me to be a yes to it. Antia's in the house. Hey, Antia. I hope you're doing super well. A question here from D. I have a friend that's 11 years younger than me and wants to be in a relationship with me. He's very mature emotionally, but doesn't have a career. Is the age gap too large? So one thing I want to say on this is I do have a YouTube video. I'm not sure if you've seen it, where I talk about age gaps. And the essence of that video, I talk about age and stage. And I actually take this view that perhaps stage trumps age. So what I mean by that is kind of like stage of life, stage of, what really means to say yes and no in your life. So for example, two people are looking to retire, they might have a 20-year age gap, and that might be totally fine. Or two people are looking to start a family or travel the world or settle down or start a new business. I think if people are in broadly similar stages, it's sometimes helpful. And that's not to say it can't work when you're in different stages. I just think it's a little harder. So yeah, emotional maturity doesn't necessarily correlate with age. I think there are incredibly emotionally mature young people and incredibly emotionally immature people. And I also just want to say, in my friends and family, I've seen a lot of instances of pretty decent sized 15+ year age gaps work really well, right? So I know that stuff can work. I'm curious about that, but doesn't have a career. What I would be curious about in relationship to that is whether he's in a stage that he can really extend his concern to you in a way that's not compromising his doing that for himself, right? So there often are stages where guys are kind of figuring things out, right? And career and mission is often a big part of that. Career mission, how to make money. And all guys go through these sort of cycles, and they're probably not just men, but I'm talking about men in the sense, cycles of, I've got it sort of figured out, I kind of know what I'm up to, and I'm kind of going in a certain direction. And then these phases where it's much less clear, where there's things are dissolving, I'm transitioning, and maybe a new version is coming along. Or there's just stages where I haven't really yet figured out who I am in the world. I might be incredibly emotionally mature, but I don't necessarily know kind of what I'm getting up and what I'm putting my attention on. I don't really know who I am in the world. And that would be the thing that I would be curious about or concerned about is if, and I've talked a lot on this channel about emotionally available, unavailable men, right? Because I was one, and it can be really confusing. And I'm emotionally available in the sense that I can connect with you. Perhaps I'm really heart-centered. Perhaps I'm very emotionally literate. Perhaps I can be with a lot of things. And you like that. We have a heart connection. Does that mean I'm actually available to be in a long-term relationship with you based upon one fact, or including the fact that I have enough stuff figured out in my own life, right? Oftentimes, if guys don't have a certain amount of stuff figured out, it's not right for them to be in a long-term relationship. And this is different at different stages of consciousness. You might say, well, hang on a minute. I know my friends, and they met at 18, and they got married at 21, and they've been together ever since. And I get it. I have parents like that. I have parents who been married for 50 years. So that is possible. But if you're using relationship to wake you up and to evolve and be more conscious, right, which is what a lot of people who come to this channel are in the conversation about, how do I really be myself and be in relationship? How do I use relationship to show me my wounds, defenses, and projections? That's a different game. And that's not the game that most of our grandparents were playing. And in that instance, it can sometimes be more problematic, I think, when a guy hasn't necessarily got some of his stuff together. And I'm not saying that's true for this guy, I'm just asking the question. It can also affect polarity, right? If you end up having to pay for dinner all the time, most women that I have worked with, that's not actually what they want. It's not that they just want to be taken care of. They want the ability for the guy to be able to do things in the relationship, have initiative, and having some resource like a job is normally, or a business or whatever, is part of that, right? It's not like I'm with you just because you have this great career or business. It's like, yeah, but if there's no ability to like take us away for the weekend and do something, or like taking out for dinner, even if we pay 50% each, or even if I actually pay for more dinners than you because right now I'm crushing it in my career, I actually want the ability to know that you could show up for some listings. There's like a deep, I think, evolutionary psychology about that. So that's one of the things that I would be looking out for. Welcome to any of you that have just joined us. We are here live. I'm going to be around for a few more minutes if you have questions. So let me know if you have a quick question. I'm also inviting people to join us in the Becoming the One program. If you haven't done this, I was here with my teaching partner, Clay Olson. We co-host and co-teach in this Becoming the One community, and we've extended our $1 trial. So if you haven't, check it out. For $1, it basically means you get 2 bonuses as part of the program. You get a private live stream with one of us that lasts for 1 to 2 hours, so we can give you a lot of individualized attention. And you also get the first module of the program. It's not a lot, so go check that out. All right, I'm going to come back to the comments here, see what we've got. So it says, would you recommend healing your wounds in therapy rather than in a relationship, or both? So I think this is a really good question, in part because there are these questions about, how much do I need to be healed before I get into a relationship, And I think it's a complex question, right? One of the reasons it's complex is because if you've noticed, I've got this recurrent pattern that I seem to pick up with me. Maybe some benefit in having a period of time where you actually are just single and you're just kind of working on yourself. Particularly if your pattern is I get very over there, or I get very in a story that then has me kind of tumble down the stairs, proverbially, it can be useful, I think, just to have a time and get with, can I be alone? Can I be single? Can I like my company? Can I feel valuable? Can I have work? All of these things, and it's not dependent upon the relationship. That said, for most of us, where a lot of our stuff is really going to get worked out is in relationship. It might get worked out with the therapist, but there's a level of survival and dependency and you see me in my worst moments that most of us don't have with a therapist, right? So even though it might be a long-term trusted relationship that's going to bring a lot of stuff up, whether it's going to bring up the same things as happen when you wake me up in the middle of the night and I'm really tired, or one of us has to go and decide who's going to go and tend to a crying family member, or, I've lost my job and you're now supporting me 100% financially, or whatever it is, that sort of stuff tends to bring up more, in my experience. So I would probably take a both and approach to that question. I think it's great to be in a relationship and have a therapist, right? The advantage of having a therapist or a coach is that you've got this sort of outside reflection and outside support. That means you don't have to process everything within the relationship, right? If we have to process every single thing that always comes up between us, we're probably going to be exhausted. We're probably not going to be able to get out of every rabbit hole we go down. We're probably also just going to find it's harder to do the things in the world that we need to do, right? Take care of business, our responsibilities, whatever it is. So I think it's great having an external support system. So I would look at it in a both and kind of way. What might be hard to heal in relationship is if, for example, your pattern is like constantly attract unavailable men. You're probably not going to heal that pattern with an unavailable guy, right? The best you might be able to do is, I noticed I've done this thing again. Let me actually draw back and downshift the connection and notice that's what I need, right? But whether that really heals that pattern fully, you might heal it in a different way in a relationship with an available man over a period of time where there's some container and commitment. Now we're in a different sort of territory. So let me know how that's landing, if that helps. One to you that joined us. Hi to Amber, hi to N Nebulous. So nice to see you live. Well, I'm happy that you're here. Back with you, Jack. Thanks for joining us over on the other channel. Sorry, I had some internet issues. Hopefully that is mostly resolved now. Joe, this is going to be great. Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. Let me know if you have any more questions, because I'm going to be around here for a few more minutes. Thanks to all of you for joining us live. I know I've also got some of you who are joining us over from Facebook, as well as on YouTube. So thanks for being here. Let me know if there's anything that I can help you with. Unfortunately, I don't have access to the previous stream in front of me. So if you ask a question there that hasn't come over here, feel free to pitch in. Question from Maya. Any practice to be authentic with myself in life and choosing the right partner? I heard some advice about multiple dating, circular dating, never put all eggs in one basket. This is not me. By the way, I admire you both. Thank you. So I want to say a few things about this. So one thing is, and I'm not an expert on multiple dating or circular dating in the sense that's not sort of part of my teaching. Sometimes in life, it seems to me, we solve one problem, and then at the same time we kind of create another problem. And I actually think it's one of the major animating forces of upward evolution in the universe, is that we solve for something, and then we actually create unforeseen problems. So one of the issues I could see with multiple dating, it solves the issue of putting all your eggs in one basket when that basket wasn't a good place to put your eggs, right? So for example, unavailable guy, drop-off guy, you're the solution to my problem guy. This is not a good place for you to put all your eggs, right? So now you say, okay, let's kind of diversify, right? So I'm going to put my eggs in a few different places, and maybe I can see over time if one of them is really worth it, I start to put more eggs into that basket. So I get that it solves the problem. What it may also do is make it harder to discern, this guy in front of me, is this a guy that I want to be in relationship with, right? Like if I now have to take 3 or 4 different inputs, and of course some of them will probably just drop off of their own accord. But I've seen this in working with people. It's like I'm processing a lot, because it's kind of like the difference between having one job and now having 4 jobs, right? Where I've got to put my attention in all these different places, and I'm kind of keeping up with this. And maybe I'm dating someone, and then someone else calls me at the same time, and I'm wondering, hey, how do I deal with that? There's a little bit more going on in that situation. So it might be a good practice to say, let me do that to solve this problem of putting all my eggs in one basket. But maybe once I've got the download on that, then maybe it would be better possibly to be fallow and not actually putting energy into any connections until there's something that comes along that I kind of know, yeah, this is actually something that is worth some of my investment in. I mean, each to their own on this, right? I'm a real pragmatist in the sense, whatever works for you. So if you're doing this strategy and it's working great for you, but if the yardstick of this is working great is actually, am I ending up in a long-term relationship that I want to be in? That would be my curiosity, is where is the data in on that? Not just out at large, but in your own life, right? Because this ultimately dating is about your life. We're not trying to approach dating as sociologists and say, at large, is this happening for 80% of people? We're talking about you and your life and the individual unfolding of your life and what is going to serve you and what works for you. And if the danger I could see is that if I'm someone that hasn't learned how to trust myself and therefore trust a trustworthy man, the diversification strategy may not be taking me fully in that direction. I mean, different investment strategies yield different things. If you're going to go to a financial planner and talk about investment, they're probably going to encourage you to diversify, right? If you have some money to invest, they're probably going to say, put some in stocks, put some in bonds. If you can invest in real estate, that's great, because that's a risk-averse strategy that is good for a lot of people at large. But if we're really doing something individualized and unique to the authentic unfolding of your life, it might be completely wrong. And obviously, all the top investors to some extent in the world, they didn't get rich by doing that strategy, right? They're doing something else. They're actually investing heavily in the few things that they think are actually going to go somewhere, right? That's like the Warren Buffett investment strategy, right? He's not investing all the time. He's investing heavily in a few companies over multiple years. So anyway, I'm not here to talk about finance investing. That's not my gig. It's just to say different investment strategies can yield different results. And so you might want to notice, is this getting me to the result that I want? Sometimes what people actually need to do is just get off the playing field they've been playing. And they've been playing in the pool of avoidant, emotionally unavailable men. And they actually need to just stop and go fallow for a bit, get closer to themselves, have their system relax a bit more, and approach things from a slower, more curious place. Right? Anytime that I've got the whirlwind of all these different guys I'm dating going on, it's not helping probably my own contactful, presence-based discernment. Right? It could be that it's creating a lot of excitement and a lot of stimulation and a lot of heart gushiness and a lot of, oh, I get to text people late at night, but it might not actually be getting me closer to my knowingness about what it is I want in my life and where it is that I'm going. So that would be my question about that. A lot of people in the realm of dating, advice, and coaching, they're kind of looking about how do you get into a relationship, maybe a bit more than like how do you get into a relationship that might work over the longer term, or a relationship that might teach you what you need to learn. So yeah, just just notice that there's advice that's coming from different perspectives and consciousnesses, and you need to find what works for you. That's, I guess, the bottom line in this for me. How do I manage missing my guy in a long distance relationship? Yes, I know that feeling. That can be really hard. So I feel for you. I do have a video on long distance relationship that I released July 2019. I don't know the specific name on it, but it's just got long distance relationship. I think both in the thumbnail and in the title. So there's a few different ways into this. One thing to say is it's not bad to miss people. No, it's a really hard experience. One is to just defend that experience rather than it's like, I'm missing them and this is terrible. There might be some way I can also find access to. I'm missing them, and that's kind of it's poignant and it's sad and it's beautiful. Like I might be able to just sort of like deepen into that experience in one way and not need to push it away, right? Some of us don't know what it's like to miss someone, right? And so even if it's really tough, there's something that can be poignant about that experience. There's also a practical piece, right? Which is, well, where is the relationship going? And there are conversations about that. Is there a need to change out of being a long distance relationship? You know, I don't know your circumstances. There's obviously long distance relationships that can happen in the context of being a committed couple, right? Like, you know, we've been together for a long time, and then someone's, you know, got an off-sea job, offshore job, or they need to travel for business into another country. You know, generally, I might be more of a fan of finding ways to do more of those things together if there's any possible way to do it, or that it might come into the conversation, hey, this is having such an impact on our relating that maybe there's certain things that are going to harm us economically that are actually going to be the benefit of the relationship. If you're trying to do long distance and you've never had sort of ground beneath you, right, where you've sort of shared a life in a more meaningful way, then you're still really in discernment about, are we trying to get into a more serious relationship? And I think the bar is higher in long distance relationship, right? Because some of the benefits of relationship, of being able to share quiet moments, easily doing things together, nervous system regulation, touch, affection, cuddling, all that stuff is just not there in the same way, right? When we're doing long distance. So in some ways, I think the conversations have to happen earlier and more earnestly about, what are we doing here? What do we see? Can someone take a risk to give us more time to overlap? You know, can someone come and spend some time working remotely in another part of the country? Can we, put mutual funds towards making travel more possible so we can spend more time together? I don't know your circumstances, but those questions often reveal perhaps the level of commitment. Even if the commitment is, I'm committed to you, even if just the commitment is, at this stage, I'm committed to finding out if we want to be in a more serious relationship, right? And are we mutually oriented to that possibility? So that's something that I would be checking out. But yeah, good question. Thank you for that. Cody says, thanks for asking my therapist. 9 years, I'm single at the moment, changing patterns from the past. I feel like I'm getting near getting back out to the dating scene soon. Awesome. Yeah, great. Well, I think that's what it's about. Keep up the good work. I says, will anyone ever fall in love with me? I do not think it will ever happen. So this is the question, you know, it might not be phrased in this particular way, but this sort of thing of, will it ever happen, right? Whether it's, will I meet someone, will someone fall in love with me? Am I destined to be in a relationship? My invitation is to try and hold that with as much curiosity as possible, right? It's almost another way of saying trust is, it's difficult to know, or could you just find out, right? It's a bit like, if you apply for a movie, you don't want me to put the spoiler alert and tell you what's happening halfway through the movie, right? In the same way that you can orient your life like it's an unfolding thing, maybe you don't have to know. I know it can be really difficult. I'm sure at times it can be excruciatingly difficult, or there are situations where you long for a partner and you don't have a partner. But the way I look at it is, your job is to participate, right? Your job is to show up. Your job is to do the work on yourself. Your job is to look at patterns that may be holding you back. Your job is to support. Your job is to pick yourself back up sometimes when you get knocked back down. We can't control who falls in love with us. We can't even control really who life puts in our path, right? We can make sure that we're not just sitting on the sofa. I know that it's been really hard during kind of quarantine and lockdown, but we can find ways to put ourselves out there, right? Which may be dating apps, it may be meetup groups, maybe all sorts of things. So, we participate, and then we have to, I think, let go, because we don't actually know, right? For some people, the right path might be, for the next number of years, you're not actually going to be in a relationship, because life is going to want you to embrace singleness as a gift, right? Because actually not being in a relationship has some upsides, right? There are some benefits to being single in terms of your freedoms, in terms of the amount of focus you can put on yourself, in terms of finding out who you are before you are, in a two. So I think you might get sort of what I'm saying is you don't want to be attached to the outcome. I don't know. We don't know. Not every life is always meant to be partnered in certain ways. Maybe some lives there's a different trajectory. It's more about, I think, coming to terms with that we don't get to control this life, and the benefit from realizing that and not having to fixate or not having to grasp actually outweighs sometimes whatever particular circumstances come to life. What about the man you're in connection with who knows it was your birthday but does not acknowledge it, only likes something related to your birthday on Facebook? My daughter says that's lame. Well, I'm glad your daughter's looking out for you. So, obviously people hold their birthdays in different regards, right? I happen to be a sort of birthday person. I take my birthday pretty seriously. I take my partner's birthday pretty seriously. Not every person is like that. So we don't want to subjectify, right? We don't want to understand. We don't want to assume that we know what a birthday means to someone. That's it. If this is really important to you, you're probably finding out that this person isn't putting a certain amount of priority on you. I know when you say you're in connection, are you dating, you're in some kind of relationship, but that might be, a pretty decent flag that's being waiting for you, saying, hey, this person isn't probably that excited about celebrating your birthday with you. So maybe they're not going to be that excited about trying to share more life with you, So what I would do in this situation is not lose too much energy to making him wrong, right? I would be more in the, is this your guy, right? If this isn't your guy, you do redirect your energy elsewhere. You can lose a ton of energy to this moron, this lame guy, he's trying to make me feel bad, he's doing this. All of that takes us down a road that goes nowhere that's actually really helpful to us. If you have legitimate, authentic anger, I would express it, probably not to him in this instance, because I'm not sure that you guys have the right kind of container to hold that. So be with your authentic experience, but also don't be any fantasy. Sometimes it takes a few things that knock us around the head a bit to see, oh yeah, actually this guy isn't really showing up in any way that would suggest that he wants to be with me, and therefore I redirect my attention. Yeah, I see this phrase coming up a lot. It's not something that I really talk about. I think the previous question I answered related to this, right? It's sort of like Maya's question about not putting all your eggs into one basket. So here are some flavors that might be a little bit more unique to me on this question. So I think life has seasons. I think there are seasons where you get much more interest and seasons where you don't. And that's going to look different for different people. Sometimes there is a season where what seems like right path to me, from my own experience of it and also coaching people, is, oh, this is a season to enjoy, that there are a number of connections that are coming to your life. That to me is slightly different than deploying it as a conscious strategy. I'm going to consciously date multiple people. Dating multiple people, I think, solves the problem of I prematurely get into relationships. If you know you have anxious attachment, that's probably one of the things, prematurity of imagining a connection to a relationship. So we want to slow that down. It's one way to slow it down. There are many ways to slow it down, right? Another way to slow it down is to only date, mostly through going on dates, right? So I don't get into prematurity relationship by suddenly texting the guy every morning or letting him call me multiple times a day when we don't really go on any dates, right? So I take an old style courtship view of getting to know someone, rather than sort of establishing these daily routines when we haven't really spent enough real time together to know whether that's a good choice. Whether quantum dating long-term relationship is the right guy, I don't know. I guess I'd be a scientist. I'd be a personal scientist. And what I mean by that is, personal science is, it's like the science of my digestive system, right? What do I know about different foods and how they digest in my system based upon observation over time? So the personal science of your life is, what do you know about how this approach to dating is working for you, So maybe try it for a while and see, that's the kind of scientific experimenter in me. I'm not a fan of noise, but I don't want to subjectify you. I'm a relatively hermetic guy in this stage of my life. I've had very, out and about, always on the go stages of my life. This is not one of them. So I'm more of a fan of simplicity, deep listening, curiosity, getting to know myself, listening deeply to myself. It's a little bit harder, I think, to listen deeply when you've got more channels of information that are kind of coming into you. So that might be one downside of quantum dating. Or it could be that when you meet someone that actually could be a more serious connection, that you don't treat it in quite the same way because you're sort of consciously keeping other connections open. Bottom line, though, I think if a guy is really right for you and he knows that and gets a sense for it, he can probably communicate that to you in such a way that you might downshift from doing multiple connections. I can picture in the past in my dating life situations where it's like, we've kind of been getting to know each other for long enough. It's kind of a bit strange in my world that you're still entertaining as many other connections. It has me take this a bit less seriously. Now, if that were ultimately the person that I think I was going to be spending more of my life with, that I might have asserted myself differently. Right? So it's also a little bit clarifying for the guy when you're with someone who's dating multiple people. If you don't go and claim, right, in a strong way, then maybe that's also good information. But sometimes I think the impulse to claim, it differs in guys, right? There's some guys that are very claiming, other guys, that's maybe not the way that they lead, So, a little bit of nuance in that equation. I would just want to prioritize the thing that most matters to you. And Nicholas says, if you're in love, a long-distance relationship for a couple of years, but not entirely happy with the way things are moving too slowly and feeling you need more action, but it's hard and temporary obstacles in the way on the side. Yeah, I get it. It can be really hard. Sometimes the hard path also grows us, right? So, another domain that I know quite well, I've started businesses before. It's often really hard. It's really hard to get to believe in yourself, to have other people believe in it, to have the time, the energy, the resources, all of it. I remember one of my first, the business I started back in my 20s in England, just having an internet connection at home. Didn't have an internet connection at home. So I always had to go to the library, and I used to imagine, I was like, wow, if I had an internet connection at home, imagine how much easier this business would be. But you kind of get with it, you figure it out. There's lots of people that have done lots of things in life with huge impediments in their way, right? So if the relationship is really one that's going to last a distance, we have to overcome those impediments, in the fullness of time. So don't be afraid of that. Just maybe notice, is this moving in a direction or, right? If there's not a prioritizing for someone or both of you to actually make it work, even if it's like, yeah, damn, this is going to be really expensive, but for 3 months, I'm actually going to take on a second job so that I can pay rent in 2 places. Or I'm actually going to take on some extra work so that I can fly twice a month across the country and spend a long weekend. And I'm going to ask my work if I can work remotely on a Friday or whatever it is that I have to figure out in order to make something happen, right? I think one of the distinctions of couples that get into a more serious relationship is there is kind of mutual willingness to prioritize the relationship. Not above everything all the time, but just sufficiently that we've actually can get in the arena and play with this. And I think 2 years is a decent amount of time to have some data in on the to more of an investment in a relationship. So, starting a new relationship after heartbreaking 3 years of solo self-reflection healing, do you think it's better to go in fully open-hearted or to be guarded at first? So that's an interesting dichotomy in a sense, in the way that you're talking about the heart, right? So there's sort of full heart open, right? Actually, I'm going to take this comment actually. So it's like full heart open, right? Or there's kind of guarded. Like, I totally get the question. My imagination is that you were going to, if that was the only dichotomy that existed, I would be more guarded, right? However, it might be that actually what you can practice is kind of appropriate emotional distance based upon the unfolding of the connection, right? So rather than sort of like a fixed stance, like we know, right, okay, we're going to go unguarded and then we're going to do this and we're going to do that. Like this isn't a rehearsal, this is lived and known as well. So what you might be able to do is be somewhere kind of in the middle where I'm not going to try and go too much, but I'm also not going to try and go too little. Like there's, I would call it sobriety. It's not a very common way of using the word sobriety, but it basically means not too much, not too little, right? So how could you approach it with presence and discernment, with sobriety? And it might be that, what I'm sensing from your question is there might be your tendency is to sort of be kind of, one end of the spectrum, right? Like I'm fully heart open or I'm kind of closed. I'm wondering if maybe a little more, even as you're connecting, there might be times you're like, oh, actually, I feel like I've overshared a little bit. I'm just going to take a step back, or I'm going to reveal that I love you asking that question. I don't feel comfortable sharing that with you right now, but I look forward to the time that I do. So it's a little bit more of, I'm kind of getting this imagery, right, of something that's sort of opening and closing a little bit within a bandwidth rather than boom, fully open or kind of guarded. That's the intuitive sense that I get with that. The right guy, I think, might understand when you're being a little bit guarded, right? I think there's also a difference between being guarded, and maybe I can include that and even name it at some point, right? Then I'm guarded to the point where I'm being kind of prickly and defensive, and it's like really hard to get to know me, right? Guarded could just mean I'm taking it really slowly. I'm making no assumptions about where this is going, but I'm not kind of trying to push you away in some sort of active way. And the more that I take care of not creating a narrative about what the relationship is and isn't, the less likely I have the risk that I'm going to be so heart open and then kind of crash and burn and wish I wasn't. I would say slow and sober really, might be the way to go. Is it possible someone is right for you if you don't feel a pull toward them, or is it just because they're not pulling away? I'm not sure that I actually get fully the second half of that question, just because they're not pulling away. Maybe you can just clarify that for me, because I want to make sure that I'm answering the right question. Thank you, Jack. I'll try and love myself more. I don't know anything at the same time. Got it. All right. Is it a problem when a guy follows like 3 different girls on Insta? My guy said he's nothing. He's just a guy and likes to look. He stopped for a year, but now needs a break and started again. Yeah, I've heard this. I've heard this as a sort of a question or even a concern before. There's lots of things in relationship that are contentious or difficult. Right? And part of being in a relationship is we do our best to try and figure those things out. Some of them we do figure out, right? We find a way of proceeding that at least minimally works. There are a bunch of things in a relationship that never quite get resolved. That's also what John Gottman and one of the foremost researchers on long-term relationships shows, that there are a bunch of issues that couples have early and they can continue. He also points out that receiving influence is really important. So, in an ideal world, when your partner says, "Hey, I'm having a problem with this thing," I want to listen. I don't have to agree with you. I don't necessarily have to agree to modify my behavior. Maybe I go in with a willingness that I might be willing to modify my behavior, not because it's necessarily right or wrong, but because I'm in a relationship with you, and there are going to be some idiosyncratic things that you need, right? Being in a relationship with me in a lot of idiosyncratic things. I have a lot of physical sensitivities that other people don't have. That means that there are lots of things that would be normal in a lot of relationships that aren't normal for me, right? But that's the accommodation. That's part of the deal of being in a relationship with certain people. And so in this instance, maybe he's able to look on Instagram, but he's actually just going to like. So he's not actually making any connection, so to speak. There's no energy that's being exchanged in this way with these people that he's commenting on. I think it's great behavior in the sense, like, if I was just going to choose of all the behaviors that guys can engage with, the ones that seem most pro-social, the most pro-relationship, this probably isn't one of them. So maybe there's also that, but I don't need to make someone wrong for it. I might just want to be fully in the impact that I'm receiving, right? Here's what comes up for me. Maybe I trust you less. Maybe I start to spin out a little bit and think of kind of catastrophic scenarios. Maybe I feel less valuable or special to you. As much as possible, I would be leading with the vulnerability of the impact, if you can, versus leading with the complaint and the criticism, right? Most of us are more receptive when we can feel someone and get their world versus being told that we shouldn't do something or that we're wrong or whatever. And sometimes these kind of things can be a little bit deal breaking, you know. The fact that it stopped and it started, yeah, it's going to be probably part of the terrain there. And if that really, really doesn't work for you, I think that's also okay, right? It's also okay to have some things where it's like, this really, really doesn't work for me. And so we either need to find some other way forward with this. You know, maybe we could look at Instagram together, or maybe you could just dial it back and it's, you know, you're not liking, you're just looking. Maybe we could have an Instagram fast. Maybe, there's all sorts of things that could happen in that territory. But it might also just be that this is a little bit of a touchstone for a level of trust and support and a willingness to attune to you that you're not receiving, and it's kind of coming out through this. But maybe even if this behaviorally stopped, then it might be that is actually just coming out in all sorts of ways in the relationship. So yeah, you have your choice, which is a powerful place to be in. It can also be a scary place to be in. But you have your choice about, is this something that ultimately is okay for me? And the way that we come towards each other in those kinds of conversations, even though it can be really difficult and we might trigger each other, we might spin out, but over the longer term, we want to try and find a way that we can come towards each other in these sorts of conversations. It's a good predictor of being able to stay together, right? Is that actually we can receive influence from each other. We do want to find a way. I do care about your experience and your needs, even if I have a very different experience and different needs, right? One of the hallmarks of a more mature relationship is you and I aren't having the same experience, and that's fine. You and I aren't going to value the same things the same ways all the time, and that's fine. How can we try and find some common ground where we're not subjectifying each other, right? We're not coming from the place of, you shouldn't be doing this. We're coming from the place of, I'm curious why you're doing this, and I'm curious about the impact that I'm having on you, and I want you to be curious about the impact that you're having on me. That's sometimes easier said than done, but that's a great place to be getting to. So, all right, I got through what I've got up here on my screen. If you want to be part of the Becoming the One trial, click here. It's $1 to join us. One of the advantages of this is that at least every 2 weeks, Clayton and I do private live streams, right, where we have a smaller group of people that have been live here today, and where we not only do some teaching, but we also get a lot of your questions, and people in a sense receive live support, and you can follow up and ask clarifying questions. And it's a great community to be part of. So if you haven't checked it out, I want to invite you to check that out. Whether you're joining us live or you're here after the event, thanks for being here. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it. And you have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon.